Imagine a city so magnificent it was called the Queen of Cities, Constantinople. For over 1,000 years, it had been the unbreakable heart of the Roman Empire. Walls that had defied every invader, golden domes that glittered across the Bosphorus. But in the spring of 1453, everything was about to change. On one side, a young sultan named Mehmed II, barely 21 years old, commanding the most powerful army the world had ever seen. On the other, a handful of desperate defenders behind the greatest fortifications ever built. What happened next would rewrite history, and it all began with one of the boldest military gambles ever attempted. This is the complete story of the fall of Constantinople, from its final days of glory to the moment the Roman Empire finally died. By the middle of the 15th century, the once mighty Ottoman Empire had already become the most feared power in the East. From the ashes of the Seljuk Turks, the Ottomans had risen like a green crescent, swallowing kingdom after kingdom across Anatolia and the Balkans. At its head stood a young visionary, Mehmed II, only 21 years old when he took the throne for the second time in 1451. His father had tried and failed to take Constantinople. Mehmed swore he would not fail. He dreamed of making the city the new capital of a vast Islamic empire. Across the narrow Bosphorus, the Byzantine Empire was a ghost of its former glory. Once the ruler of the known world, it had shrunk to little more than the city of Constantinople itself. Emperor Constantine V commanded fewer than 10,000 defenders. Help from the Christian West never came. Mehmed moved with terrifying speed. In just months, he built the massive fortress of Rumeli Hisari on the European shore to choke the Bosphorus. He hired the Hungarian engineer Orban to cast the largest cannons the world had ever seen. The siege was coming, and the young sultan was ready. On April 6, 1453, the siege officially began. Mehmed II arrived at the head of an army estimated at 80,000 men and over 300 ships. The city was now completely surrounded on land and sea. The defenders, just 7,000 to 10,000 men under Emperor Constantine V, knew this was their last stand. Mehmed's secret weapon was now unleashed. The Hungarian engineer Orban had cast giant cannons. One of them, the Basilica, could hurl 600-pound stone balls over a mile. For weeks, the walls shuddered under a relentless bombardment that had never been seen in history. To protect the Golden Horn harbor, the Byzantines had stretched a massive iron chain across its entrance, supported by floating barrels. Mehmed responded with a daring plan. But first, his navy had to break through or go around. The defenders held their breath. Day after day, the cannons roared. Sections of the outer wall began to crumble, yet every night the Byzantines repaired the damage under cover of darkness. Mehmed grew impatient. The first major assault was coming. The Queen of Cities was fighting for its life. For weeks, the Byzantines had held one vital lifeline, the massive iron chain across the Golden Horn. It kept Mehmed's navy locked out of the harbor. The defenders breathed easier behind that unbreakable barrier. But the young sultan was not a man who accepted barriers. Under cover of darkness, Mehmed ordered the impossible. 70 ships were dragged out of the Bosphorus, placed on greased wooden logs, and hauled over the steep hill that separated the two waterways. Thousands of oxen and men pulled in total silence. The greatest engineering feat of the siege had begun. At dawn on April 22nd, the Byzantines woke to a nightmare. Dozens of Ottoman galleys now floated inside the Golden Horn, right behind their defensive chain. The impossible had happened. Mehmed's fleet had bypassed the barrier without firing a single shot. The balance of the siege had shifted forever. The Golden Horn was no longer safe. Mehmed could now attack the city from two sides at once. Panic spread through Constantinople, but the defenders refused to surrender. The final, bloodiest phase of the siege was about to begin. May 29th, 1453. Before dawn, Mehmed launched the final all-out assault. Wave after wave of Ottoman troops crashed against the walls, first the irregulars, then the elite janissaries. The cannons thundered non-stop. The city's defenders, exhausted and outnumbered, fought with everything they had left. Fierce fighting raged for hours. Then came the critical moment. A small gate called the Porta was left unbarred in the confusion. Ottoman troops poured through the breach. The outer defenses collapsed. Emperor Constantine V, realizing all was lost, removed his imperial purple and charged into the fray like a common soldier. The last Roman emperor vanished into the chaos, never to be seen again. By midday, the triple walls that had stood for 1,000 years had finally fallen. Ottoman flags rose over the battlements. The Queen of Cities had fallen after 53 days of siege. Mehmed II had done what no one believed possible. At just 21 years old, he had conquered Constantinople and ended the 100-year-old Roman Empire. But the story was not over. What happened next would shape the world for centuries to come. Mehmed II entered Constantinople on May 29th as a conqueror, but he chose mercy. He allowed the city's people to keep their lives and most of their property. The great Hagia Sophia, for 1,000 years the heart of Christianity, was transformed into a mosque, a symbol of the new Islamic Golden Age. He renamed the city Istanbul and made it the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. The fall of Constantinople marked the official end of the Roman Empire and the beginning of a new era. Trade routes shifted, the Renaissance in Europe was accelerated, and the Ottoman Empire rose as one of the world's greatest powers for centuries to come. From the ashes of the old empire rose a new superpower that would dominate the Mediterranean, the Balkans, and the Middle East. Mehmed the Conqueror had fulfilled his dream.
I dreamed of conquering Constantinople, a vision from Allah. Alhamdulillah. For this great destiny, I give thanks.
The Queen of Cities was now the jewel of the Islamic world, and the story of one of history's most dramatic falls had changed the course of civilization forever.